Good evening.
Oh,
Hey there.
Good evening.
Good evening. I believe we're all here. Mr. Parker, you're not waiting for any staff. You're good? Okay.
Yeah, I think we have everyone now.
Okay. All right. We can get the committee of the whole meeting started. Ms. Conover, if you would like to start with the policy committee.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to open up our policy committee of the whole meeting tonight. Today is Thursday, November 5th, 2020. It's about 6:30. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Mr. Parker, are there any comments?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Conover. Good evening, everyone that's joining us, staff as well as community. I do have some comments today, but I'm going to abdicate my time to Mr. Dan Bosket, who is joining us this evening in his role as the board chair for the Allentown School District Foundation to make an announcement.
all right. Thank you, Superintendent Parker. I guess I wanted to announce that in collaboration with the school district and the foundation together, we were awarded the Lehigh County, I guess, COVID-19 grant, we would call it, in the amount of $2,082,000 and $82,237 is the number I have, Mr. Park, Superintendent Parker. It covers a variety of things that we need in terms of upgrading the facilities in the school district, mechanical upgrades, and the response to COVID safety recommendations that have been made includes items like touchless drinking fountains, air filtration upgrades, including maintenance and cleaning, germicide, irradiation of the HVACs, and some isolation room upgrades as well. I wanted to say that this was a very successful joint project venture. The school district staff did most of the heavy lifting in terms of putting together the parameters of what needed to go into the grant. So I wanted to thank the school district for doing, the heavy lifting since they had the data and knew exactly what the needs were. I want to thank the foundation staff for, doing the mechanical part of getting the application submitted through the foundation to leverage their status as the 501c3. This truly benefits the students and actually will help, improve the learning conditions when they're able to actually go physically back to the buildings. I also wanted to say that I wanted to give a lot of thanks to Superintendent Parker, because he's, since he and I have talked, he's had a vision that we could do more in terms of what the foundation was doing to not only collaborate, but align priorities with the school district. And I think this shows that, if we're all on the same page, how big an impact that we can actually make. I think it's fair to say, I think this is the largest single grant that the foundation has ever had passed through. And we're very fortunate and thankful that we can be a benefit, especially at this time. And we're looking forward to doing more work with the school district as well. So I guess that's all I wanted to say, Superintendent Parker, but thanks again. And again, I wanted to acknowledge Superintendent Parker's vision about what we could do in terms of the foundation being able to work closely with the school district.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bosket and the Allentown School District Foundation for partnering with us on this grant. I would also like to thank the County of Lehigh for putting education into their CARES funding requests. Jeff pointed out that he believes this is the first time the county has put money towards education in the Allentown School District Foundation or the Allentown School District. So this is a significant gift for them. Thank you to County Executive Phil Armstrong and Frank Kane, Director of DCED. And thank you to Commissioners Mark Gramis, Percy Doherty, Amy Zanelli, Jeff Brace, Nate Brown, Bob Eldick, Dave Harrington, Dan Hartzell, and Zakiya Smalls. I do have to give a special thanks to Commissioner Brace, who was the primary sponsor of the legislation. The bill passed unanimously, and it does lay the foundation for healthier schools for our children and our staff.
So I am beyond excited for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, when we look at the impact, we know that the Allentown School District is fiscally one of the most challenged districts in the Commonwealth, definitely the most challenged in Lehigh County. From a facility standpoint, I'll channel Tom Smith and talk about the building deficiencies that we have, and he's made that really clear to our board and community time and time again. When we look at the impact that $2 million will have on air and water, and we know that those are two of the areas where the transmission of COVID can be significant. Air quality issues in our building, as well as the continued use of physical water fountain spaces, being able to mitigate the ability of those two issues to transmit the COVID virus is absolutely significant for our staff, for our students, and for our communities. And for Lehigh County to step up in this major and significant way is really exciting to me. Again, Mr. Bosket spoke about the school district and the school district foundation really working together collaboratively. Although I want to correct you just a little bit, Mr. Bosket, it's the second largest, because last year, and kudos again to the Allentown School District Foundation in connecting and collaborating with ASD and the Century Fund, there was the middle school transformation grant. So we see kind of a pattern where when we are locked arms together, we can make significant impact for our kids and our community. So I am with you. We are with you, lockstep, and appreciate your continued support. I don't often call individual folk out on staff, but I have to. Tom Smith has been the lead push behind this and the vision for what our buildings and our kids needed to mitigate the issues of safety with COVID. So kudos there. I get to be the pretty face behind all of this stuff. Tom Smith did the heavy lifting there. So he is definitely one of our unheralded superstars in the district. And Missy Smith as a superb grant support for Tom in pulling this all together. Kudos to the two of you. In addition to our county commissioners, I cannot say enough for our county commissioners and our county exec for making it really clear where they stand in terms of how to best support 20,000 students and staff that are filtering through Allentown School District buildings each day and making the investment in the safety of our community, starting with our local school district. My hats are off to each and every one of you. I am proud and excited to be here and be a part of this announcement today. Ms. Conover?
Are you handing it back to me now, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I want to thank you also, the Foundation and Mr. Dan Bosket. I did hear you say that you were looking forward to continued support partnership with the Allentown School District, and I'm looking forward to it too. So I heard you loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss items that are actually on the agenda. So I want to make a special announcement tonight, especially with policy. There's going to be policies read tonight, but we're not going to continue to read the whole policy. We're only going to read the changes. And I say this because I want the community as well as our board members to realize that although we're only going to read part of those policies, only the changes, what we're going to be doing it's our responsibility to actually look over those policies prior to our board meetings. And what happens is, for the public, in the event you see something there that you do not agree with, or you question, or you want to have some input on those policy changes, this meeting, which is the committee of the whole meeting, is the meeting that is created to actually what we'll do is we'll vote on it, and then it moves on to our regular board meeting, which is scheduled for November 19th in this case. But it's every other week that we have our meetings. So when we open up the floor and we say to you, do we have any one from the public that wants to make comments on agenda items, that is your time to plug in, to jump in, so that we'll get a chance to hear what you're saying. In addition to that, we have our district on our website. We have Let's Talk. So that's there also. So you can use that at any time. So I don't want anybody in our city or in our school district to feel like any of these policies that are being made or anything that's being done is being shoved down your throat. You have the opportunity to reach out to us. We are constantly putting things in place so that we can enhance our communication with you. So I just wanted to say that before I move forward with our agenda. So at this time, if anyone from the public has any comments that they would like to make on agenda items, please come forward. And I don't see, let me see if I see any hands. I don't see anyone's hands. So seeing no hands, we're going to move forward. And we're going to start with our first discussion item, which would be policy 2020. Dr. Brown?
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. Tonight, we are presenting 3 policies from our student programming series number 200 and 1 policy related to our community from our 900 series. And Ms. Polick will speak to those policies and the engagement processes that were used to receive feedback from all critical stakeholder groups. Ms. Polick?
Good evening, everyone. Again, as part of our stakeholder engagement process, I met with families and staff to review our policies and have a discussion around any concerns that they had. In addition, the policies were shared with principals, our academic team, and the cabinet in order to gain feedback, and the solicitor. So the first policy is policy 220, which is student expression, distribution, and posting of materials. So the purpose of this policy is really to acknowledge our students' right to freedom of speech and their right to express themselves, keeping in mind the district's responsibility to maintain an orderly school environment and to protect the rights of all members of our school community. So there are minor content updates to the policy for better clarity. And in addition, the definition of expression was added and a sentence at the end that includes seeking advice from the solicitor before imposing any discipline for potential violation of the policy. Do you have any questions about policy?
Does the board have any questions? Hearing no questions, seeing none, not seeing any hands, may I have a motion to move this forward to our next regular board meeting, which is set for November 19th?
So moved.
May I have a second? Is there
Second.
second by, is that Charlie Thiel?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Thiel. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to our next board meeting. We'll go to our next policy, which is policy number 236. Dr. Brown?
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. Again, Ms. Polick will be presenting, and if it's okay, we'll just have her move consecutively through the policies, if that's okay.
That sounds wonderful to me.
Okay.
So policy 236 is a new policy for our student assistance program that outlines our commitment to really assisting our students to achieve their full potential. So the SAP, or Student Assistance Program, is a systematic process that helps us to mobilize our school resources to remove barriers to learning. The policy outlines the assistance that is provided, and if there's a problem beyond the scope of the school, assistance is provided to the family so that they can access services within our community. Do you have any questions about this policy?
Lisa, I think you muted yourself.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Miller.
there.
Does the board have any questions on this policy? Hearing and seeing none, I would like a motion to move this forward to our next board meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Miller, is there a second?
I'll second.
Sarah Brace, is there any discussion on this motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye, was that an aye? That was all ayes, am I correct?
Yes.
So this moves to our next regular board meeting. Mrs. Polak.
Okay, the next policy is policy 247, hazing. And the purpose of this policy is to ensure the district maintains a safe, positive environment for students and staff that's free from hazing. There are some minor content updates that were made to ensure better clarity and organization of the policy. The definition of hazing was updated in accordance with the law. The definition for student activity or organization was also added, in addition to language regarding distribution of this policy and other relevant procedures in accordance with the law. The complaint procedure and section for consequences for violations was also updated for better clarity. Do you have any questions about policy 247?
Are there any questions from the board members about policy 247? Seeing and hearing none. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Can I get a motion? I'm sorry. Can someone make a motion to move this forward to our next board meeting?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Let it be known by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposers? Hearing and seeing none, this moves forward to our next board meeting.
The next policy is policy 916. It's our volunteer policy. And this policy recognizes the importance of community volunteers and their contributions to the district. The definitions for adult certifications, direct volunteer contact, and person responsible for the child's welfare and visitor were added in accordance with the law. And it classifies two types of volunteers and outlines the guidelines and certifications that are required. So there's language regarding tuberculosis testing requirements, arrest or conviction reporting, and child abuse reporting was also added in accordance with the law. So a large part of the language in the policy was added or updated for better clarity. Do you have any questions about policy 916?
Are there any questions from the board in regards to policy 916?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson Watts.
So I know there is a section on reimbursement for expenses, and I don't know if this is necessary or is it something where it's as applicable. But if by chance we can create scenarios where there is a fund either through a grant or some type of advanced funding that we're able to pay for volunteers to have their background checks done. Because at one point, I believe there was something in place when it came to reading volunteers. So I'm just curious as to what the scenario is with that, because I don't know the inner workings of what goes on with the volunteer process.
Mr. Parker, would you like to answer that?
And I can, or I'm sorry, Mr. Parker.
No, go ahead. I was trying to get unmuted. Go ahead, Ms. Pollard.
As far as the clearances, I know that, and I can check on the answer for you, but I believe when they check themselves as a volunteer that there isn't a fee for 2 of the clearances, but I will confirm that.
Okay, yeah, and then maybe if it could be put in the request for volunteers so that this volunteers know that they're not going to have money to be able to volunteer, but that we are going to assist them with getting those processes done.
And there are administrative regs with this particular policy, so that will be included in there as well.
So for clarity purposes, it will not be, first, this is a question. Ms. Johnson Watts, are you asking that it be included in the policy, or are you okay with it being placed in our regs?
My only concern is that it says reimbursement for expenses. So by declaring that you're getting reimbursement for expenses, it gives the impression that that's the only financial thing that is possible. So if there is maybe a clause that says provision of funding for volunteer processing fees or something like that, I don't know. But I'm just saying that reading through this, if I was an excited parent or community member, and then I saw reimbursement for expenses, then I would say, oh, you know what? It's going to cost me something. I don't think I'm going to want to do it.
Okay, I will look at that wording.
And we'll circle back with the solicitor on that as well, just to make sure we're lockstep with kind of other board policy in terms of reimbursements.
Or provision of it and making it known that it's being provided.
Correct.
So people don't realize, so people know that there is no outlay of dollars to participate.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson Watts. Is there?
Can I have a quick comment?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just for the edification of the committee and everybody watching, and Tiffany's done a great job on this, and Lucretia. You might want to look at some of the language. It might seem a little weird. Where did you get those words like imprimatur and so forth? Those phrases actually come right out of some recent case decisions and really make these policies kind of cutting edge in terms of the most recent interpretation, especially on the student expression one. So if anybody thought, some of the wording was kind of unusual, where do they get these things? They're really based directly on the words in the case law or in the Title IX regulations.
Is there any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Freund. Hearing none. Can I get a motion to move this to, can I get a motion to move this policy to our next regular board meeting for November 19th?
So
We did
moved.
the motion, so moved. Second.
I'll second.
Motion passes. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposes? No opposes. So this policy moves to our regular board meeting for November 19th. And once again, the floor will be open at our next board meeting if there's persons from the public that want to speak on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. At this time, if there are any comments from the public on non-agenda items, if you'd like to raise your hand, we'll let you speak. Seeing none, is there any old business to come before the board? Any new business or grass catcher items? Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miller, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Ms. Conover, if you would like to start the Education Committee meeting.
One moment. I'd like to call the Education Committee of the Whole to order this Thursday, November 5th, 2020. Again, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the agenda items regarding education. Mr. Parker, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Conover. This evening, we will present a very brief update on our opening of schools, as we do with each board meeting. I will kind of pass the floor. Dr. Brown, how are you getting the presentation up?
I believe IT will be sharing our PowerPoint. That was. Thank you. So if we could advance to the next slide. This is our regular scheduled, if you will, opening of schools update and where we are in terms of our decision-making processes and status. Mr. Parker, did you want to say any words before we dive into where we are as a county and the impact of the county community spread level on local school districts?
Absolutely. So and board and our students and staff members have already received some communication regarding this. We met with the Department of Health and the Department of Education earlier this week. They called together the educational leaders in Lehigh County and I think Delaware County to explain and express the transition of our county from the moderate to the substantial levels of community spread, which indicates for us, as expected, there's a spike in the cases of COVID in our county, in our community, as we get into the colder months. For the Allentown School District, we are already in the virtual campus, so the full remote learning, which is what would be recommended for school districts as we transition into substantial levels of community spread. However, we wanted to still ensure that we brought this information to you so that you had, again, an opportunity to see it, process it, and kind of know what's happening in our community as it relates to COVID rates and impact.
Great. And I'll just conclude with giving a quick overview of the slide that's here for our school board of directors in our community. There are two indicators that dictate a school district shift between the instructional models outlined by PDE and I believe visible on our next slide. Positivity rate, which within the last 7 days was 6%. And then our incident rate, which within the last 7 days has peaked a bit higher than the 100 number that is the parameter or the benchmark, if you will. And so as Mr. Parker said, and just to add to that, if the cases continue to increase or the incident rate continues to increase for the next 7 days, we will be notified of a shift required for the instructional model. But as Mr. Parker said, Allentown School District is already engaged in our remote learning through our virtual campus. So we are well positioned to hear that noise, that news, provided PDE makes that decision toward the end of the week or early next week. If you could, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just one other piece, one thing that the state mentions is once the county makes the transition from moderate to substantial, the goal is to then transition back to moderate for a 2-week period before, kind of lifting or reducing some of the restrictions. So for us, again, we're in full remote. So we're within the confines of this category, but still something we want to keep an eye on, especially as it relates to what the next quarter looks like for our students.
Absolutely. And if we advance the next slide, it's just the graphical depiction of the instructional models and the level of community transmission in the county that was designed and developed by PDE. So we are now into the substantial level of community transmission, which is why we're bringing this update to our community and school board of directors. Next slide, please. At this point, we want to hear from our academic team and give our board and our community first glimpse at the recommendations that have evolved from the feedback and concerns that we have heard over the course of the last 3 or 4 school board meetings with regard to Accelerate and our Edgenuity platform that are being used in our virtual campus. So at this point, I would invite Mr. Will Sang to give an overview of how we are addressing the concerns at our K-5 level.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm providing these updates. I want to give thanks to Jen Bryant for her work in collaboration on this, as well as our Accelerate project implementation team that consists of representatives of our elementary schools and our reading specialists and intervention specialists for the work they've done as well. Per the concern that we heard from families, from teachers, from students on workload, Accelerate's a brand new program, and we are looking at modifying the modules to focus on standards-based assignments for students to demonstrate mastery and reduce the number of overall assignments in Q2. We're also hearing, per the teachers and families' concerns about the levels of difficulty, additional supplemental materials provided with Journeys, Go Math, and Science Fusion. And we're also increasing district access for learning support and ESL teachers in the Accelerate program to streamline the accommodation and modification process. From those slides, you see some supports we're providing is the review of those module modifications and the updated documents for teachers in their morning meetings with their principals, as well as
My apologies, Will. I don't want to just disturb you, but I think we need to advance to the next slide. I think there's one more recommendation. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. I figured I'd talk about the supports for these three and then hit the last one as we change slides.
Okay.
But in addition, we had a team consisting of our elementary principals with teacher grade level input that made recommendations for a slight tweak to our progress report as well. And that was the addition of a fourth code in place of a 1. The 1 was little to no evidence towards standards mastery, where we would replace that with an IE for insufficient evidence, knowing that there may be some factors with our families and our students as far as the lack of evidence we have on their learning due to connectivity, due to device acquisition, due to different factors that may be outside of a family's control. Supporting that module modification would also be professional development time on the 25th. That's a PD day before we leave for the Thanksgiving holiday. We have a program component matrix as a reference for the digital materials available in Think Central as support for our second recommendation as far as the supplements. And we do have our facilitators for both special ed and ESOL that have already been trained that are going to turn around the training to the ESL and learning support teachers as far as their increased access. And similar to what was mentioned as far as the committee that worked on the progress report guidelines, those had teacher input, and there's additional meetings and professional development rolling out tomorrow and Monday for those teachers and those schools for the progress report guidelines. We do have a robust and comprehensive communication plan, both internal and external, to support the changes and the tweaks that we're making to continually improve our virtual learning experience for our end user as far as students, families, and teachers.
Thank you, Will. Next, we'll have Ms. Sawyer speak to our 6 through 12 changes and revisions to Edgenuity.
So Edgenuity, very similar to Accelerate. We had some issues that were brought about with the workload and the generic pacing of Edgenuity, causing overdue assignments and a lot of anxiety for students as they were working through the program. So again, the academic team really worked hard on coming up with these recommendations to be able to answer all the needs that we need to correct within the system. So we are looking to, we're going to be modifying the dates in the system to be able to allow the pacing of Edgenuity to not necessarily slow down, but actually go along with the pace of the teacher in the classroom. And along with that, it will be allowing the bypass option to allow teachers to actually teach in their Google Classroom and have teachers more closely aligned to what's happening in the classroom with the use of Google Classroom, along with the use of Edgenuity, which was one of the issues that we saw. It should reduce the number of assignments that students are required to complete, but at the same time, allow teachers the autonomy to make some instructional decisions in the classroom while still being able to maintain the fidelity and the standards-based program that we have available for them. As well as the last recommendation is the implementation of the MyPath intervention for math and literacy for special ed students and for L students, providing that support for those students that are struggling in those areas. Supports are aligned in a twofold manner. So we have for recommendation 1 and 2, we're going to be providing extensive professional development along with a pilot with a group of teachers so we can pilot the changes that are happening and be able to actually get the feedback from teachers, from students that are in the pilot, so we can better inform the decisions that we're making with the use of that system. So we have teachers from middle school to high school, along with special ed teachers and L teachers that are going to be able to provide us the feedback as we move through that pilot. And then the implementation of MyPath intervention, we have professional development for the accommodations for struggling students happening, how to better use the system, speech to text, guided notes, language transitions, and a lot of other components of the system, in addition to the MyPath intervention training, specifically targeted to special ed students, special ed teachers and L teachers as well. Again, same as with Accelerate, we have a robust communication plan for internal staff members and for external communication to students, parents, and community as well, to ensure that we are getting the message out there. What are our expectations in the system? What does lesson mastery mean? And all of those components within the Edgenuity system.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So as we move into next steps, which we identify each time we come before our community and the board, we'll continue to monitor and review the local COVID-19 data and make the public aware, as well as our families and other critical stakeholders of any shifts in the status. Stemming from our most recent and exciting grant announcement, we continue to build out and assess what building readiness would be at such point in time when we do or we are able to move staff and students back into buildings. So we really have a robust design and process and protocol for ensuring that each building is properly outfitted to sustain that reentry. We'll continue our communication with our families and staff as well. We've had a recent town hall, we've had a few focus groups, and we'll continue down that pathway as we move forward through toward the end of the year. And this last bullet, Mr. Parker will take and begin to explain a bit more.
Yeah, so the last bullet here, and I'll circle back. What you see is a response to what we've heard from our parents, our students, in terms of the implementation of the virtual campus. The end of the first quarter has given us an opportunity to review, make some adjustments that we think will make it a bit better and more comfortable for our students and our teachers to really thrive and implement the curriculum as necessary. As we make those adjustments in our academic and instructional environment, the next sports season is upon us. So winter sports is coming. The district made the decision to participate in sports in the fall sports season. My athletic department is hard at work now. We're awaiting some information from our conference, as well as additional guidance as it may come from the Department of Health and the PIAA, with the increase to the substantial category. So we're developing an athletic proposal that will include some issues in terms of mitigation protocols and spectator guidance. So at our next board meeting, we expect to have a more robust conversation on sports, but we wanted to put that on your radar now as we kind of close the conversation on making adjustments for first quarter.
That concludes our bi-monthly update.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, all that has spoken. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on non-agenda items at this time?
Ms. Conover?
You have questions? I'm sorry. Ms.
Yes,
Johnson?
on the presentation that was done, in terms of the COVID update, it's great to hear what's happening on the education side and what's happening related to the software, as many concerns did come up with that. I just have a request that as we go forward, if we could speak a little bit more about the component, the build out of the social emotional component of what we're doing at the district, so that people have an idea of what we're putting in place as our children begin to deal with issues of anxiety, depression, and other things related to COVID.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Charles Johnson Watts. I apologize, I didn't see your hand. Is there anyone else from the board that maybe they don't have access that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, I'll move forward. We're gonna go to our next agenda item, which is Dr. Brown discussing student device purchases.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Conover. We will have Missy Smith, our Executive Director of School Improvement, speak to a supplemental fall 2020 building device purchase and RFP process that the district recently embarked in. Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Tonight, I will just review with you the request for proposals that we completed as part of the RFP process to ensure that we were in compliance with our federal grant protocols and guidelines. We surveyed ASD, our process included surveying ASD principals. Then we posted an RFP on the ASD website on October 16th, 2020. We posted the RFP in the morning call and express times on Saturday, October 17th, Saturday, October 24th, and Saturday, October 31st. Proposals were due this week on Tuesday at 12 p.m. We received 15 proposals or quotes, and the range of costs ranged from $900,000 to $1.4 million for the 306 Chromebooks that we requested as part of the RFP for the district devices. And Grant School Improvement and IT collaborated on the proposal scoring. And sorry, I didn't realize I didn't have it into presentation style. This is the summary of our device proposals. You will see that we scored based on Chromebook cost, on the Dell cost. Dell was written in as part of our non-public request through our consultations. The delivery score, how quickly they would turn around devices to us, if they would be able to update the devices, the feature scores, warranty scores, reference scores, and an overall proposal score with some of the specifics we had in the RFP. You can see we had multiple companies that submitted proposals to us, and we had some companies that submitted more than one proposal. Scoring device, we scored from 4 being the highest to 1 being the lowest. And each category had its own descriptors based on the category, but it was a 4 to 1 range. And the RFP was for Chromebooks and Dell laptops. Dell is our recommendation due to their consistent scores across multiple measures, as well as falling in line with the highest scores with a $1,402,645.38. And they also offered the Dell Chromebooks or the Dell laptops at $40,640. One of the things I would like to call out is they did receive on our scoring a 1 for their delivery score. However, in a clarification phone call from them this afternoon, they were confident that they would be able to deliver through by the end of the year. So that while they do have a low score, we would have devices. He was confident by the end of 2020. And I'm sorry.
I don't know if everybody else is having a hard time hearing you. Is there an issue with hearing her?
No.
Hello?
You can't hear me?
Everybody hears her fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa, I think that maybe your signal's a little sketchy.
Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys. Let me fix it.
Point of clarification. The number of devices, Ms. Smith, could you just clarify? The PowerPoint slide said 3,006, but I just wanted to confirm that's the amount is 300, or which would be the accurate?
The accurate number, Dr. Brown, is 3,006 Chromebooks. At this point, a minimum of 3,006 Chromebooks is what was written into the RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions?
I think Ms. Johnson Watson.
Hi.
Hi, Ms. Johnson Watts.
Hi. If as we're moving towards more of every student having a device, I'm wondering if we can circle back to students that may not have cameras on their devices, who said they didn't have students who said they didn't need a device because they have one, but they don't have a camera on their device. Something for down the road, if we can circle back to those.
Absolutely.
We'll make a note of that, Mrs. Johnson Watts.
So if there are no more.
Miss Bryce.
I have a question. For the non-public schools, are we allowed to know which non-public school is getting them?
Through all of the grant process, Mrs. Brace, we had to consult with, I believe it was 17 non-public schools for our ESSERS grant, the Continuity of Education grant, the ATSI grant, as well as the Special Ed COVID Mitigation Grant. So across all 4 of those grants, I would say every non-public school allocated funding that they would be receiving to devices, whether it be Chromebooks or the laptops. So it would be across those 17 schools, but I do have the amount that was allocated per building for that information.
Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure if this was like one public school came to us and said, hey, can we use funds to get these? If it's going across all, then that's fine. Okay.
It's going across all, and it was for procurement. It was a good way for us to, as we were doing this RFP, to include them into that process. So it wasn't a separate process.
Okay.
I'm back.
I see you're back, Ms. Conover. Are you good?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So where are we?
I just was finishing my question and I don't think there's any other, so it's voting time.
Okay. So are there any questions? May I have a motion? Does the board have any questions? That's what I should ask. We're done with the questions, right? So may I have a motion to approve this item to be forwarded to our next board meeting on November 19th?
So moved.
So moved.
May I have a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposers? Seeing none, this will move forward to our next regular board meeting of November 19th. We'll go on to our next item on the agenda, which is to discuss Bytes renewal. Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. Tonight, we are requesting the approval to move forward a renewal for Bytes, a data analytics platform that the district began to implement approximately 2 years ago through a three-way partnership or two-way partnership with, at that time, Upside Allentown Education Subcommittee. We were able to begin to implement that platform, use it through and with a number of our schools. And particularly, we chose a feeder pattern, so we would capture a K-12 cohort, if you will. That data analytics platform was used to help us identify and monitor student success metrics within those schools. One of them being our CSI, one of our CSI schools, Robb Middle School. So during our CSI quarterly routines, we were able to hear our administrators and teachers report out on how they were actually using this platform in their daily practices and monitoring structures. We do have on the line with us Ms. Karen Goldstein, who is the Director of Research and Senior Client Thought Partner, to speak a little bit about her experience with the district as we've moved through implementation and goals for renewal should the board agree to move this forward for an official vote at the end of the month. Are we able to unmute Ms. Karen Goldstein?
Can you hear me?
We can. I don't know if you need screen sharing abilities or not.
No, I think that's okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit about the work that we have done with ASD over the past 2 years. I've had the privilege of working on site with educators at McKinley Elementary, Cleveland Elementary, Union Terrace, Robb Middle School, and William Allen High School, and really helped work with the CST teams and the SAP teams to identify students who are at risk of not graduating successfully, as well as students who are at risk of not going on to post-secondary endeavors, and then connect those students to appropriate interventions. So the Bytes tools allows educators visibility into those students who are at risk, and then transparency in terms of what kinds of services those students are receiving after we've identified what they are. In this environment of COVID, where we are not physically in buildings and can't just talk to somebody down the hallway, that visibility into what students are receiving is really important. And this tool gives educators the opportunity to put things where everyone who's allowed to see that student information can see the data. I'm also joined by my colleague, Dr. Crystal Ayers, who is our Chief Development Officer. And she also has worked with Allentown, I think, since the very beginning. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the platform and about our partnership with Allentown.
Thank you, Ms. Goldstein. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve this item to be moved forward to our next regular board meeting?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 This motion moves to our next regular board meeting. Let's go. We're gonna go on to our next item on our agenda, which is item number 3, Employable Skills Curriculum Program. Dr.
Yes,
Brown.
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. Ms. Sawyer will be presenting on the next 2 items, the Employability Skills Curriculum Program, as well as the Early College and Dual Enrollment Student Success Coach Initiative. She'll begin with the employability course at this time. Ms. Sawyer?
Okay. So we're requesting the board's approval tonight to continue engaging in the business education partnership with the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley to implement the career linking class called the Employability Skills Course Grant Initiative, sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor in 2 of our high schools, William Allen High School and Darragh High School. Can I share my screen really quickly? Because I have a graphic that shows the employability skills curriculum itself is a renewal. And basically this is it. Employability skills is career readiness in a nutshell, where the course itself goes over applied knowledge, soft skills like effective relationships, and workplace skills all at the same time. Through our partnership last year with the Workforce Board, we were able to see over 200 students in the first year of the grant, seniors, some 11th graders, and they were able to work through a lot of soft skills, communication skills. They had a lot of different successes with completing college and career artifacts, visiting with the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley, and some other career presentations and things like that. So they were able to work through that course. Currently this year, just in first semester, we have over 439 kids scheduled for this course. And it will be the second year of the grant that we will be able to work with the Workforce Board for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. Does the board have any questions?
Yes. You said 439 students this year?
So far.
And how many were there last year?
Last year, there were a little over 200 students. There were 212 students that took the course last year. It's a semester-long course. And this year, in semester 1, we have 439 so far.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions from the board? Seeing none or hearing none, may I have a motion to approve this item to be forwarded to our next regular board meeting on November 19th?
So moved.
Mrs. Matheson and Mr. Miller? Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposes? Hearing and seeing none, this moves to our next regular board meeting on November 19th. We'll take our next item, item number 4. Dr. Brown, early college and dual enrollment.
Yes,
School youth.
I'll refer directly to Ms. Sawyer.
All right. So this again, we're requesting the board's approval to engage in another grant opportunity with the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley to implement an early college and dual enrollment student success coach for use with all of our students that are dual enrolled and our early college students at L-Tri-C. The grant award amount is $73,990, which pays for the success coach to work with all of the students that are currently enrolled at L-Tri-C at all 3 of our high schools. So through that partnership, they will be, he or she will be doing presentations in the classrooms with the students, parent information sessions. They'll be doing a lot of different activities such as time management, study skills, organizational skills, tutoring, job coaching, disability supports if needed for special ed students or IEP students or L students, and just providing supports for all of our students that are taking college level courses. The success coach will have a case to manage with all of those students. It aligns with a strategic area 1, 2, a lot of our strategic areas in the strategic framework, as you can see, cultivating a culture where students feel safe, valued, and nurtured, centering the district's work on personalized learning and college and career readiness, and collaborating meaningfully and deeply with families and communities. It also aligns with our curriculum audit recommendation 5 to connect equity for all students with actions at all levels, including aligning programs and services to major district-wide goals and priorities, such as college and career readiness. This is source of the funds is the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley PA TANF grant. There is no, it's not in our current budget. There's no match required. It does require us to hire us. There is a staffing requirement. The student success coach salary is covered by the grant. And this was reviewed by the solicitor. Sorry.
Thank you, Mrs. Sawyer. Do we have any questions from any of the board members? I see Ms. Johnson Watts, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say this is fantastic. I'm thrilled. This is wonderful, and it's, you know, it's nice. It's proactive. It's just all around wonderful to see this happening. First of all, dual enrollment is wonderful to see happening, and now to see this additional layer of support, it's just thrilled. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Our comments echo Mrs. Johnson Watts. This makes my heart glad. Thank you.
Thank you. As an additional layer, this is the second success coach. They have another success coach that is working with our students as well at El Tracy. So it's going to be a dual effort between two different grants that the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley has. So it's definitely an added bonus for our students.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I don't see any other hands. May I have a motion to move this item to our next board meeting?
So moved.
Ms. Cheryl Johnson Watts. Second. By Charlie Field.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion passes and it moves to our next regular board meeting for November 19th. We're going on to our next agenda item, number 5, United Way, AmeriCorps Vista.
Yes, tonight we're requesting the board's approval to move forward a renewal of the annual MOU between the Allentown School District and the United Way of Greater Lehigh Valley. This renewal covers 4 Vista program coordinators, 1 that is assigned and attached to our Dodd Elementary School, and 3 others that have broader scopes or assignments, if you will, district-wide literacy, attendance, and kindergarten transition. The cost of each Vista is $4,000, which comes from our school building Title I budgets. And in general, overall, the Vistas support the buildings or the departments with school-wide attendance awareness, recruiting and training, and coordinating parent and community volunteers, supporting family engagement events and activities at the building level, and overall an emphasis on kinder readiness during the school year and the summer months. We have Mr. Radcliffe from the Jackson Early Childhood Center online with us to speak to his experience. He's hosted a Vista for the last 4 years. So if we could unmute Josh, that would be helpful, just to share a few words about his experience with our Vistas, our AmeriCorps Vistas.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Brown. Yeah, so as Dr. Brown mentioned, this is I'm in my 4th year of hosting a Vista at Jackson. Actually, the first year was when we were at Lincoln Early Childhood Center. The Vista has been, very productive in attracting and engaging community members, bringing in resources for our families. The main goal of the Vista at Jackson is geared around early literacy. But as we know, especially with our youngest learners, that can be a variety of different topics. So whether that is even just finding basic needs for our families that might be struggling, finding parent education programs for them, and then also to just like as Dr. Brown mentioned, bringing in additional resources to be utilized within the school building, geared towards literacy for our youngest learners.
Thank you, Josh. So at this time, we can entertain any questions that anyone may.
Are there any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing no hands. May I have a motion? I'm sorry.
Ms. Conover, if I could just make one statement. We have been doing a lot of work in the district with kind of realigning priorities. And that means a lot of our partner work has been really challenged to realign to the board's strategic framework. And that strategic framework has really driven all that we do. And I want to just take this moment to publicly applaud the United Way, because they have been dynamic partners with us along the way. We've pushed and screamed and everything else in between to kind of, level set our organization to where we want it to be in terms of meeting the needs of kids. And the United Way has been absolutely dynamic in being shoulder to shoulder with us. You're going to hear something in the next few months about the next round of community schools and that work connected to our middle school transformation, which is connected to our college and career readiness. It spirals. So everything that you've heard this evening as it relates to college and career readiness with workforce on the secondary level connects explicitly to what we're doing at middle school and elementary. And just kudos from me to the United Way for being a great partner in that work.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. And I want to thank United Way as well. So may I have a motion to approve the items to move forward to our next regular board meeting this month?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Cheryl Johnson Watts, first motion moved by Mr. Miller and second by Cheryl Johnson Watts. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes to our next regular board meeting for November 19th. We're gonna move on to our last item on our agenda, which is number 6, which is United Way Community Schools Partnership with Sheridan Elementary School. Dr. Brown?
Yes, another exciting moment to see the expansion of the community school model, particularly at our elementary level. Perhaps what's most exciting about this is the collaboration, as Mr. Parker noted, between the district and United Way. This particular collaboration, though, was really focused on our Title I rankings, poverty rankings of our buildings, and strategically aligning the United Way resource with one of our most neediest buildings. So we were able to spec out, if you will, a new pathway that's absolutely rooted in equity work and really allowing us to allocate the resources as we stated in our equity commitment for our students, staff, and families. So tonight we're requesting the approval to move forward a brand new memo of understanding between the United Way of Greater Lehigh Valley Communities and Schools and the Allentown School District. This implementation of this community model will require a $5,000 funding match from the Allentown School District and will support the partnership as we implement this model in our Sheridan Elementary School. We do have the principal from Sheridan online with us just to share her thoughts and her excitement as we embark on this expansion of our partnership. This community school model, as you all know, is not new to our district, but is really an exciting point for Ms. Lesko and ourselves as we move forward. So Ms. Lesko, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Brown. I just want to, on behalf of Sheridan, just say how excited we are for this opportunity to become a community school. This is something we've been hoping for a very long time, and we just see this as a huge way for us to move forward in better supporting our students and our families.
Thank you, Lisa. We also have Jill Pereira, one of the key United Way leaders that was strategic in helping us get this particular school launched. So Jill, I don't know if you'd like to say a few words, if we can unmute Jill Pereira.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. And just, I can't express enough where Dr. Brown and Superintendent Parker just started to say, this really does mark a new way of partnering from our United Way perspective with the Allentown School District. And the really clear example I'll give to you is that Sheridan was not part of the plan that United Way put together for how it would roll out community schools across the region. And we really had to kind of regroup and say, you know, are we equity focused, and how do we demonstrate that in a really meaningful way? And it meant putting our plan to the side and looking at your plan for your strategic plan for the district and figuring out how we can realign ourselves and redirect the supports that we're mobilizing in community to match where you all are driving change. And so that is what brings us to this exciting moment of having an MOA or MOU on the board for consideration to bring Sheridan online. And we're really, really excited, not just for Sheridan, but also for a new level of partnership within your district. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill.
Do we have any questions from the board members? I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question would be, what does the partnership, because I see there's a $5,000 match, right, from the district? Mm-hmm. So what time period does that cover, or what does that look like since we're virtual right now while we're making this decision?
Dr. Brown, do you want me to speak to that?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
So the MOU is typically our MOUs run on a fiscal year, and the contribution from United Way is $85,000. So the district putting in $5,000 to an $85,000 contribution coming through us from some donors. We'll hire a coordinator. We're looking at, if it's approved at your board later this month, to have that hiring process begin, to have somebody starting on January 1. And so you all could decide that you want to prorate a $5,000, you know, among the number of months that are left between January and June. We are negotiating with CIS, who will be the hiring entity, kind of what that means, as typically an $85,000 would cover a full year of salary. And if we're only hiring in January, how do we retrofit that?
Thank you for answering that question. I know there were probably people who had that question, or if not, I had it anyway, but thank you for answering it. Are there any other questions from board members? Seeing and hearing none, may I have a motion to approve this item and move it forward to our regular board meeting on the 19th of November?
So moved.
Cheryl Johnson Watts, may I have a second?
Second.
Second by Charlie Thiel. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye. I was just going to say, I'm just excited to see another school be able to share in this opportunity. It's very exciting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion passes to our next board meeting on November 19th. I will hand it over to our president.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. At this time, if there are any comments from the public on non-agenda items, if you would like to raise your hand, we can unmute you. Seeing none, is there any old business to come before the board? Any new business or grass catcher items? Do I have a motion to adjourn the Education Committee of the Whole meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Thiel, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And that meeting is adjourned. And Mr. Miller, I will pass it over to you for the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Brace. I'd like to call the Finance Committee of the Whole meeting to order. for Thursday, November 5th. On the agenda, we've got a stipulation of council. And because of the lengthy agenda, I will go right into superintendent comments. Mr. Parker, any comments? Mr. Parker, any comments?
I don't think he can hear you, Mr. Parker.
I think we must have lost his audio. We can come back. I will ask if there's any comments from the public on agenda items.
So just FYI for the board, I'm going to be sending you a quick email on a emergency situation that I was just alerted to. Hopefully I'm not the holdup of the meeting.
No, Mr. Superintendent Parker, do you have any comments for finance? Okay, we're going to move on to, I don't see any hands raised for public comments on agenda items, so I'm going to go right to our business manager, Harry, for
Ready
the
to move forward.
of council.
Good evening, everyone. We would like the board to request from the board a stipulation of council, and it is for the property located on 439 West Walnut Street in the city of Allentown. We have with us Mr. Jonathan Huerta from Kingspry, who can answer direct questions related to this assessment. Without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jonathan.
Sure. I mean, just briefly, the stipulation was attached as well. This is part of the school district initiated appeal program. We are effectively increasing the assessment on the property from $312,300, which resulted in applied market value of $370,500 to a fair market value of $750,000 with an assessment of $632,250. The result is an additional approximate $7,000 per year in school district real estate tax. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do any of my colleagues have questions on this stipulation of council? Seeing none, is there a motion to move this to the regular board meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, and do I have a second?
Matheson.
Ms. Matheson, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. I will turn. We got one more, the monthly report that will be presented at the regular board meeting. I will turn it over to Mr. Thiel.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? I don't see any hands raised right now. Seeing none, is there any old business? Is there any new business or grass catcher items? And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. Do I have a second? Second, Ms. Johnson Watts. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Brace to close out the evening. How's that, Mrs. Brace?
I'll say that's the end of our committee meetings, and thank you for everyone who attended tonight. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Night, folks.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.